This is just a quick demo just to show you how to grout your mosaic pieces.
Right, so before you start grouting, it's quite a messy process, so you're going to want to cover your work surface with some newspaper or something. Then you want a pair of rubber gloves, thick rubber gloves if you can, because the latex ones is going to, you can rip your fingers open on the sharp pieces of mosaic. Then I've got 220 grams of grout. Now this is this one, I'm just going to show you this one. Obviously other brands are available, but this is one I like, and it's ready mixed and it's quite nice and dark. So that's a good one. You can buy white and stain yourself, but it's a bit of a long process, so I just like to use that one. And then I've got 50 millilitres of water. Now that doesn't look anywhere near enough water, which is the mistake I always make. I put too much water in, then I make it too runny, then I put more grout in, and then I make it too thick, then I put more water in, and before I know it, I've got a bucket full. So you just want just the right amount of water. So just add half of that, and then give it a stir. Now it just doesn't look like it's going to be enough, so just keep at it though. I just use an old teaspoon, but you could just use a stick. More or less everything that you use with grout will be ruined afterwards, so don't do it with anything that you want to use for any other purpose. I mean, it is cement based, so try to keep it off your skin if you can. Once I'm putting it on, I'm going to put my rubber gloves on. That's very nearly there. I might just put a tiny little drop of extra water in, but it is just going to be a little drop. So let me just grab a tiny bit of water. So it's just going to be literally another couple of drops. So sort of buttercream consistency, I would say, like that. Right, so we've got that. Right, so we've got our grout mixed. You can see that it's just sort of the consistency of sort of buttercream there, like that. So rubber gloves on. The other thing you're going to need as well is some kitchen towel for when you start cleaning off. So I've got an old rag here that I use especially for wiping off that's wet. Some kitchen towel. So this is where you have to get your hands into it. So just start smearing it in. So work it right into all the joints, making sure that you're squishing it in all different directions. Keep moving it around. I prefer to do it just with gloves on, with my hands, because I find whenever I try and do it with a tool, a spatula or anything, the first thing I do is start pulling the little bits of mosaic off. I think your fingers are sort of gentler, really. So I do the bottom first. I keep sort of rubbing the excess off and moving it along. And when you come to do round your pebbles, you're just going to have to sort of poke it in the back and around the pebbles, and you want to sort of try and get it right into those holes down there and sort of fill those up with grout, particularly if you haven't got them very close together. They don't always sit very close together. So that's pretty much all of the bottom covered. So I'm going to start working around the edges now. the edges done pretty much. Oh, I've missed a bit there. Right, okay, so that's the all of the sides done. So now I'm just going to do this outside edge. So I'm just going to put it on a wheel. Don't worry if you haven't got a wheel, but it is easier if you have got one. Just to sort of spin it around, and then I just do this top edge, and then you've just got to get a bit here. Now don't panic that it's going onto the terracotta, because the terracotta is really high-fired terracotta. It won't stain it. We'll wipe off again. So I'm just going to fill in any low points. There's just this little gap around here. It just needs a little bit more in. Yeah, that's lovely. Just scrape off any excess we've got hanging around back into the tub. Yeah. Right, so once you've got it like that, leave it for about 20 minutes, just long enough to go and have a cup of tea. Don't forget about it though, because it will set like a brick. Right, so we've left our grouted piece for about 20 minutes, and I'm just going to show you now wiping it off. I have actually cleaned my gloves, so avoid if possible washing your gloves in the sink, because the grout tends to clog your drains up if you do any amount of it. Best to just wipe it off with a bit of kitchen towel and just get rid of that. Right, so what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to start off by just doing my outside edge. I'm going to do this with a wet cloth, so I'll just sort of spin it around as I'm doing it, just to show you here. And just keep needing to around like that, and you keep finding a clean bit on your cloth. Quite clean it around, and then you can go around with a kitchen towel. And wipe that off. Right, okay, so once you've done your outside edge, then you can just start in the middle here. And I just sort of just gently wipe it, really. So try not to sort of pull it out of where you've obviously put it in. But just start wiping over, and you can start to see some other colours come up. Just keep on wiping. And you can see sort of areas where it's sort of like, that's where it's got some adhesive on the front, where the grout's actually sticking to the bits of adhesive. But don't worry about that, that will all kind of come off. Let me see a bit there. And just scratch those bits off. It's quite nice, I like this stage when it starts to sort of emerge back out of the black. And get through lots of kitchen towel. Right around the edges as well. So if you get it to about that stage, Yeah, so when it gets to this stage, and it's starting to look like most of the excess is off, I would then leave it again. This time I'd leave it for a couple of hours, and then you can kind of have another wipe over it. Don't leave it for too long because it will set again. But yeah, a couple of hours and then come back to it again. I think I might just, actually before I leave it though, I'm just going to wipe the rocks over. Obviously not pulling it out where you set it round, but just to get the colours back on the rocks. Yeah, don't use a wet cloth on the rest of it though, because you'll start melting the, watering the grout down again and pulling it out again. So yeah, get into that stage and then leave it like that for a couple of hours. Right, so we've left that for a couple of hours now. You can see that the grout started to dry off quite a bit. So I've got my wet cloth and I'm just going to give it a little wipe over. So there may just be some little bits that you just want to pick out. I've taken my gloves off now because I find that, doing fine stuff, it's quite difficult with thick gloves on. So you've got little bits that are stuck on. I've got a little rather blunt old blade here. I'm just picking off little bits of adhesive that I can see. Just pick it over really, so just give it a wipe and then see there's a little bit of adhesive there. Just pick those little bits off. And that grout will still be a little bit wet round by the stones, so don't dig into it too much. Just sort of wipe it round. It's really just a question really of just sort of picking it over until you're happy with it. And wipe round the edges. Yeah. So when you've finished finally wiping it all over and you're happy with it, leave it for the next day or a couple of days later for the grout to completely dry, especially this bit that's behind you, if you've got any stones or rocks set in. And then you just need to give it a quick coat of this stuff, water seal here, and that'll just make it fully waterproof then. So just pour a little bit out in a saucer and just brush it on all over with a biggish brush, and that should do you. Brilliant.